Look, I don't like to make things personal on this channel, but there could have been no perfect birthday gift for me today than for Milan to come back from a 1-0 deficit, for Rafael Leão to score both of those goals, and to end the night with an interview with Luka Modric. This is the same player who asked Iglitare before he joined Milan, does this team actually have a chance to win the title? I asked him that question, and 7 games into the season, granted, his AC Milan sits in first place. And I'm gonna get my 4 takeaways from today's match. You guys know how this works. Green boxes for good performances, red boxes for bad ones. So kicking things off with the first takeaway from today's match, this one's gonna be a green box that goes out to Santi Gimenez. Now, I'm not giving this green box to Santi because he was kind enough to do an interview with me and was really funny in it. I'm going to put it on my Instagram a little bit later. But this is a player, through all the criticism that he has been receiving, including from myself, is starting to show an impact for the team. He still hasn't scored a goal. Still no goals in Serie, but his impact on the field is being felt right off the bat. You know, it doesn't happen very often, hasn't happened very often this season that, you know, the scoreline is 0-0 and I'm, you know, crying out for Gimenez to come on. But it felt like in today's game, that's exactly what the team needed. It was a little bit surprising to see after the way, you know, how quiet the first half was that, you know, Allegri didn't make the choice of actually bringing Santi just during halftime, because that, I feel like that Salamakers and Leao combo up top just wasn't really working for me. And I was really hoping that he's either going to switch Alexis to the right, bring Gimenez in alongside Leao, or, you know, take Alexis off. But Allegri still stuck around with that. He waited for them to actually concede a goal. This is the one thing that Allegri doesn't really like to do. He's talked about it very often that, you know, I want my teams to take the lead and then control the game. I don't want them to fall behind and then have to play catch up. That's kind of what he allowed his team to do by not making that switch. He could have made that switch during halftime, but then when he did bring Santi on, he made his impact. There were multiple shots that, once again, he kind of struck it right at the goalkeeper, but they were still shots that threatened. It still made their defensive structure believe that now you have that target man. There was one moment, I think in the first half, that there was a cross, I think, that came in from the left flank into Milan's, while Milan was attacking, it came from the left flank, and there was no Milan target man up top. You felt like both Leao and Salamakers were sort of just falling more so into the midfield, and you didn't have that number 9 up top, a traditional number 9. And then when Santi came on, I think you had a target man up top, and it kind of disrupted a little bit of how they were defending as well. And then for him to get those quick shots in, quick headers in, Bartesaghi also deserves credit for those crosses in. I think it definitely threatened their backline, and I think it sort of forced them to do the thing that they ended up doing, which resulted in Milan winning that penalty kick. That penalty kick was created by Santi Gimenez, and that's what I'm talking about. He didn't step up to score that goal. He didn't score a goal yet, but he left his impact on the game. He won the penalty kick. Fortunately, Milan decided today that they're going to convert their penalty shots, and it ended up being the game winner. So that impact being felt from Santi deserves a green box. And the first shout out from today's match is going to be a shout out that goes out to the captain in Maignan. You know, that goal that Milan ended up conceding, I mean, you kind of feel for him. He did make that save. He parried it away. It was a bit of, you know, helter-skelter defending, you felt like at the end, especially when Mike, you know, parried it away, and bodies are just falling all over the place. Ended up being a deflection off of Gabbia that they easily tapped into an empty net. But, you know, rethink this one more time. I've already talked about this a few times. Now, Milan has conceded 2 goals since the Cremonese game. They conceded a goal against Napoli. They conceded a goal today against Fiorentina. But just look at both of those goals. Look at the first goal against Napoli. It was a penalty shot. Today's goal, just kind of chaotic defending, and the ball sort of falls to them into an empty net. You can't call that a goal that Fiorentina necessarily earned. You know, they created movements, their players went through the lines, you know, it was passes, through balls, one-on-one opportunities, scored a great goal. It was still a decent defensive structure from Milan throughout the entirety of the game, except for that moment where they kind of messed it up. I mean, I think they did kind of also have a bit of chaotic defending at the end, but I think that the credit that I'm giving here is to Milan's defensive structure that is really holding up when it comes to not conceding goals. They either are penalty shots or unlucky parries. And don't forget, this was my reaction to when Milan Kean was trying to close down Maignan. Maignan held on to the ball. For the entire stadium, I can promise he held on to the ball for a little too long. But the way that he managed to get away from Kean, I mean, I think he was a stable figure in the back line, deserves a shout out. And the second green box from today's match, you know, even in my conversation with Luka, he actually explicitly at one point in time said that this wasn't our best performance. And I feel like for that reason, some of the green boxes that we're also seeing are not necessarily the absolute ultimate best performances. I think I want to give credit to players that have done a good job today. And I have to give this one to Davide Bartesaghi. I feel like the number one thing for Bartesaghi, especially those link-up crosses that he made for Santi, his crossing was on a different level today. I actually feel like he could have scored a goal today if it wasn't for Fofana, taking the shot himself. I think Davide was really accurate with the way that he was striking the ball. There was a cross for Fofana around 70 minutes and 40 seconds that, Fofana struck right to De Gea. He did make a bit of a schoolboy error. I think 9.5 minutes in, there was a throw in, and instead of throwing the ball in, he just threw the ball up and it just went out. It was a funny visual to see, that happen. But, it was that moment. But I think there was one key moment that a lot of people actually aren't talking about with Bartesaghi, and that is what happened in 88 minutes and 51 seconds. That's when Milan already has this 2-1 lead. That's when Fiorentina are launching an attack after an attack after an attack. Trying to get that equalizer. And this time the ball fell to Dodo. And it was pretty much unmarked. And there was that panic in the stadium. You could feel that tension in that moment, that gasp. And that shot from Dodo was blocked off by Bartesaghi, holding on to a really good position. And that's the thing, right? Last season, a lot of the times, those crosses would come in. Unfortunately, not trying to go after Theo, but defensively at times, he was just nowhere to be found, or he was just too slow to close things down. And Bartesaghi did a good job defensively. I think his crosses were super accurate, worthy of a green box in my opinion. And the next one's going to be another shout out. This one goes out to Matteo Gabbia. I was a little bit conflicted between, Bartesaghi and Gabbia as to which one to give the green box to, which one to give the shout out to. I kind of went with Bartesaghi because the expectation from the players, I would say lower, obviously, than Gabbia. Gabbia is an international player now. And I felt like he exceeded that, but even Gabbia to me was really solid today. I thought defensively he was really good. There was one thing that, as somebody who's sitting in the stands and, not watching the game on TV, one of the things that I was able to, kind of look at with Gabbia's positioning when it came to comparison with Milan Kean was that you always felt like he was never, obviously at times he was trying to play him offside, but if Kean was too deep and their attack was, moving close to the midway point, halfway line, almost always I noticed that Gabbia was keeping Moise Kean onside by about at least 2.5 feet. And I think he was kind of mitigating for the pace that Kean has, so that if there is a through ball, because I noticed that they were trying to launch a lot of through balls or balls over the top for Kean, not trying to, pass through and through, but actually launch a ball over the top. And anytime, I think twice that I noticed that this happened, when that ball was pushed out to Kean, Gabbia, because he was playing him onside by a couple of feet, he just had that head start and he was able to close it down. I feel like if they were playing a tight line where just letting him sit on the edge, if that through ball came in and Kean was here, he would actually beat Gabbia in a race. But because Gabbia was playing him onside a bit, when that ball would come in, Gabbia would still be able to catch to the ball right at the end. So that was something defensive that I noticed while being in the stands that, you guys probably didn't see on TV. Again, that goal was really unlucky for both Maignan and for Matteo as well, but a worthy performance for at least a shout out. And this was one of the viewer questions that I got that I asked Santi Gimenez. Who is the bossiest player on the team? He named somebody, but then Alexis had already given me his answer, and it felt like, Santi kind of agreed with that. Alexis says Gabbia.
Gabbia also. The capitano también.
And the next one's going to be a call out. I feel bad, honestly, in a 2-1 win. I don't really want to call out players, but I just felt like Fofana's performance today for me just didn't do the best job. He once again had those shots that he took that went over the crossbar. And I felt like even at times his decision making with the ball didn't feel the best. In the first half, around 29 minutes and 10 seconds, there was a give and go that he tried to do with Leão. It just felt like it was too rushed. Didn't need to be a one-touch play. There were too many defenders there for him to try to do that. And he lost the ball. In those moments, you got to capitalize. You don't want to give up on those opportunities. It was a good breakaway, and he tried to do something too clever, and the ball, it just didn't come off. And then there was one moment, I think this is the main one for me, that there was a counter-attack that Milan was on, and Fofana was going, driving the ball from Milan's right flank a little bit towards the middle. Almost, this was while he was inside the box at this point in time. And Bartesaghi was available to his left, and he was completely unmarked. There was no defender on him. It was basically a 2-against-1 situation if you look at it from a defensive structure. Fofana could have easily passed the ball to Bartesaghi, he would have been on his favored left foot. He was striking the ball, crossing the ball really well today. I feel like it could have been a goal because he was completely unmarked. But Fofana, because I think it's also weighing on him that he has missed all these chances that have, fell to his feet, and they always, go up in the air. He did not strike the ball, properly, and it was a lost opportunity. I think the scoreline at this point in time was still 1-1. So I think some decision making to me from Yusuf just didn't seem his best. He has been a solid player this season, I would like to say. I think defensively he's also done a good job. He fits into the midfield well. I think he would still be a starter for me alongside Rabiot and Modric, but I just felt like his performance today wasn't the best, so a soft call out for Fofana. Which brings us to the next green box from today's match. This one's going to be a green box to Luka Modric. My God. I honestly... I don't even know what to say, because when you're in the field, when you're in the stadium and you're watching him from that vantage point and seeing his performance, you just have so much respect for the amount of work this guy puts in. I think somebody else already talked about this. I read somewhere that today Modric's performance wasn't about the attack and the creativity. It was actually about the defensive work. The amount of times he won the ball, the amount of times he blocked their chances, cut their passing lanes, intercepted. You just feel like, how is this person playing like they're two people? You feel like there are two Modric's on the field at times. And how is he pulling this off at 40? Let me read this to you. 27 minutes, 40 seconds, slide tackle interception from him. 35.5 minutes, closed down Dodo after Leao went down in the box. Right, Leao went down in the box. Dodo was going on the counter, and he closed him down and went out for throw-in. 68 minutes, all I have written here is Modric, wow. So I'm just going to play this clip for you guys, because clearly I reacted to something he did there. And then 93 minutes again. I already talked about Bartesaghi blocking that shot from Dodo. 93 minutes, Modric blocked a shot from Dodo again. So to me, just from a defensive standpoint, being able to hold on to this slim 1-goal lead, this absolute, you feel like with all the players that we lost through injury over the last few days, knowing that Modric was still there, you actually felt the degree of calm. You felt like, okay, you know what? At least Luka's there. And for a defensive performance like that, absolute green box for him today. And the next one's going to be a quick shout out. This one I want to give out to Winter. Oh my God. Once he came on really, really late, right? But the amount of headers, the amount of clearances when you're, again, as I said, when you're holding on to that tight 2-1 lead, you need your defense to completely kill anything off that they're trying to do. And the amount of times that he headed the ball away, I think he did that in the last match too. The amount of chances that he's closed down, and I think a lot of it comes because of his size. He's a very tall player, he's a strong body, and he just closes these chances down against the opposition. He heads the ball away, clears them. So for me, I think playing a massive role, and he also had a big block at 90 minutes and 20 seconds. So came on as a substitute, but did the job. And usually if you're going to be sitting in first place, doesn't matter after, at least as long as after more than 5 games, let's just say. But when you're sitting in first place, you do have to perform as a team. And that's exactly what we saw from him today. He came in, played his role, did his part. Which brings us to the final green box from today's match. Obviously, no surprises here. Rafael Leão. I mean, look, guys, 2 weeks. This is what I was talking. I think I already tweeted this out too. 2 weeks. I think Leao's misfortune was that he missed the chance that he missed against Juventus, and there was the international break, because gave so much fodder, so much ammunition for all these people to say all the things that they want to say about him. And it was a perfect day today with Christian out, with Nkunku out, all the injuries that the team had. You knew that you needed a leader to step up. As I said earlier, you felt like Modric was that person. But what Leão did today, by scoring those 2 goals, he shut everybody up. And that first goal, that strike from Leão, was exactly what you needed. That's exactly what he needed for his confidence as well, because once he scored that goal, you felt like even his defensive work went up. I just feel like the amount of criticism that this player, in my opinion, unfairly has faced this season, because 48 minutes is the amount that Leão played this season, and everybody was talking about him like till no end. And sometimes this is what happens when somebody is maybe even criticizing you unfairly for basically a half played the entire season. When you actually do get your opportunity and you have the space to be able to deliver, this is what a player can actually do. And I think, to me, the first goal was beautiful, but that second penalty shot, I was so stressed out, guys. I think there was a stat that came out that Milan had missed five of their last 7 penalties. So when you've missed 5 of your last 7 and you have a penalty kick taker in Leão who doesn't even really take penalty kicks that much, for him to put it with that much calmness and ease past De Gea, putting him the wrong way, was exactly what Leão needed to do to just quiet down the noise. And I'll put this stat back up. I put it, when all the injuries took place, but it's important to reflect on this for a minute. 108 Milan caps for each player, 59 goals for Pulisic, that include 4 penalty kicks, and 57 goals and assists for Leão with no penalty kicks. He's also played about 150 minutes less than Pulisic up until the most recent game, at least. And I feel like the rhetoric about both the players is so different. With Pulisic, it's all compliments, as it should be. This guy is arguably the most important player on this team, so this is not a knock. Pulisic is key. He's missed. He needs to be back ASAP. But in the same breath, Leão has the same numbers. Now, I said it in the previous video, I'll say it again. Is there an expectation versus reality situation here? Yes. Expectation from Leão in 108 games might be 65 to 75 goal contributions, and he's falling short there. But I just feel like sometimes the criticism that Leão has to take, like I saw over the last 14 days, is just over the top, unnecessary, and I'm just glad he was able to quieten that down today. And for that performance, not just a green box, everybody knows that. We were down 1-0, this guy scored both the goals, we win 2-1, that's a gold box performance. So there you have it, Milanisti. Those are my 4 takeaways from today's match. Well, at this point in time, Milan sits in top spot. 7 games in. It's way too early in the season, obviously, but this is exactly the kind of run this team wants to go on. It's these games against Fiorentina, not playing the best, but Fiorentina, not dropping points against Juventus, away from home, should have won it actually. Beating Napoli. If you really think about it, the point dropped against Juventus and the 3 points dropped against Cremonese at home in the opening match, we should have had all of those 4 points still in our pocket. So it really should have been 7 games and 7 wins for this team. And I think sometimes that's what you got to focus on. So it's not just the points that I'm looking at, it's the way that they're performing. And to lose 5 potential starters but still pick up the maximum points is exactly what a team that wants to fight for a title does. And I'll put up my conversation with Santi Gimenez, Luka Modric, Alexis Salamakers on my Instagram page, on TikTok as well. So if you haven't already, follow me on Football Kush on everything, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. And as always from my side, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao tutti. The issue was money. A generational goalkeeper saw his nickname amongst Milan fans change from Gigio to Donnarumma. And to remind him of their dislike towards him, Milan fans at the San Siro showered the Italian with fake dollars in his first match back at their stadium.